In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to reverse score items or variables in jamovi. And specifically, I'm going to demonstrate 3 different ways to reverse score depending on the response scale of your variable. So what we have here are 3 items, for example, from a self-esteem scale. They all have the same values, they're just on different response scales. So the first version 1, so V1, they're all the same item. This one ranges from 1 to 5. Okay, so all 3 of these variables will have 5 response options, but what those responses are will be different. So in this first one, it's 1 to 5. For the second variable, it's 0 to 4. So again, it's still 5 options, but this one ranges from 0 to 4. And in the third option, it ranges from -2 to 2. So again, still 5 options because 0 here is an option. So given these different response scales, the techniques that I'm going to show you, it requires you to use a slightly different technique. So I would argue that from what I see, this is the most typical response scale. So something from like 1 to 5 or 1 to 7. So the first technique I show you will likely be the most useful for you, but every so often you will find a scale. Let's say you're working in a data set where the researcher decided to use a 0 to 4 or a -2 to 2. So I'll demonstrate how to reverse score each of these. So let's start with the V1. So for each of these, we are going to create a new variable. So in jamovi, we go to this new column here, double click, and then go to new computed variable. So it's always nice to label these. So I'm going to click to the variable I'm going to reverse score and copy the variable name to reduce typing. So I'll just paste it in, and then I'll just do reverse or _r to indicate this is reverse scored. And I would put a little description. So reverse scored self-esteem V1. Okay, so for this variable, I will put in, so what you do essentially is, for this one, we know that the original variable ranges from 1 to 5. So in this first technique, what we're going to do is we're going to take the highest value plus 1. So in this case, it ranges from 1 to 5. So we're going to do 6. So 5 plus 1. So 6 minus, and then the original variable. So self-esteem V1. Okay, so you click away, and then what you should see here is, if we kind of bring this up again, this is now reverse scored for V1. So how you should be able to double check that, so what was the top of the scale, a 5, is now the bottom of the scale, a 1. What was the bottom of the scale, a 1, is now the top of the scale, of 5, and so on. And what's the middle of the scale should not change. So a 3 should be a 3 no matter what. And there it is. Okay, so that's the first way of reverse scoring. So again, so this is like a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 7. Importantly, a 0 is not included. So that's different from when we get to version 2 here. So it's the same item, but here it ranges from 0 to 4. So the fact that there's a 0 in the response options doesn't allow us to do the highest value plus 1. So now instead, you just use the highest value. So, so in this case, it's going to be a 4. So let's go ahead and reverse score this version 2 item. So we're going to create a new variable. Let me just copy this so I can paste it in later. Okay, so here we go. New computed variable. We'll paste it in _r. So reverse scored self-esteem V2. So here again, we're not going to use the highest score plus 1. We're just going to use the highest value on the response scale minus the variable. So in this case, just to remind you, it ranges from 0 to 4. So we're going to use 4 minus the variable. Okay, so now this is a reverse scored of the second version of the item. So again, to double check, we should just look at what was the highest value of 4 is now the lowest value, a 0. What was the lowest value, a 0, is now the highest value, a 4. And what was the middle score in this response scale, a 2, is now still a 2. Okay, so now this is a reverse scored of the version 2. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to reverse score the third version. So again, this third version ranges from a -2 to a 2. Again, there are still 5 response options, but we can't use a different technique. And for this version, what we're going to do is deviate or subtract scores on this variable from 0. So in the first version, we did the highest value on the response scale plus 1. In the second version, we did the highest value, which was a 4. So in this third version of reverse scoring, we are going to, this is our original response scale, -2 to 2. So we are just going to use a value of 0, which is actually the midpoint of this scale. So let me copy this so it makes it easier for me. So we're going to do a new computed variable. Okay, reverse scored. All right. So here we take a 0, which is actually the midpoint of the scale, minus, and then the variable itself. Okay, so again, just to double check, so let's bring this back up. Let's move this so we can see. So again, this is the reverse scored of the version 3. So here's the original version 3. So a negative, or let's say a 2 was the top of the scale. So a 2, so a reverse scored, this should now be the bottom of the scale, which it is, which is a -2. And then what was the bottom of the response scale on the original variable is now the top of the response scale on this new reverse scored variable. A 0 was the midpoint on the original variable, and it's still the midpoint in the new variable. Okay, so that is 3 different ways to reverse score depending on your response scale that you have in your variable. Again, this first one, the 1 to 5, it's sometimes a 1 to 7. This is the most typical. So in this version, you just take the highest value plus 1 and then subtract the variable itself. Here, you take the top scale or top response option in your scale, which was a 4. And in the third version, final version, you take the midpoint of the scale, which is 0. And that is how you reverse score in Jamovi.